listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
Hello and welcome along to the Straight to Video podcast. As always, I'm your host Rob Lane and I want to thank you all for tuning in. On today's show, I got the chance to talk to the excellent Josh Ruben, who is the writer, director, and one of the stars of my favourite film of the year, the superbly creepy, funny, and downright original horror film Scare Me. Scare Me debuted on the Shudder channel back in October and has just been released on VOD, video on demand, for everyone to now see. How would I describe Scare Me and why it impressed me so much? For me, I love a film that is original without trying to be too clever. With Scare Me, you can feel the honesty portrayed from everyone. It's funny, scary, and definitely one that earns itself repeat viewings. Inspired by classic 80s horror anthologies such as Cat's Eye, Creepshow, and Tales from the Crypt, Josh describes his film as a campfire anthology that never leaves the campfire. Basically, it's two writers in a cabin telling each other scary stories, but where most films would cut away to a separate acted short film, Scare Me stays within the confines of the cabin, and it's down to the characters to act out each story with the help of some stunning editing and great sound effects. Ruben and his fellow stars Aya Cash and Chris Redd all shine throughout this film, and they are a joy to watch and to just bathe in how great they all interact. If you've not seen this film yet, please go and check it out and let me know what you thought. I was thrilled when Josh agreed to chat with me on the podcast, as I knew he also had a love for 80s horror, so you know I'm going to be all over that. We chatted a lot about Scare Me and then dived back into Josh's growing up, and whilst he may be known for his brilliant comedy sketches, I think his directorial debut with Scare Me might see him kicking open the door into the horror genre. For me, at least, I hope so. So please enjoy my chat with writer, director, and actor Josh Ruben.
I have an idea.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
What's your idea?
Scare me.
Wait, like,
You scare me, I'll scare you.
what?
Power outage. I'm bored. You're a scaredy cat.
Unfair?
Let's tell each other scary stories.
I don't know any scary stories.
Oh, you don't know any scary stories? You get to make them up because you are a writer.
You are the professional. I work in advertising.
Oh my God, dude, shut the fuck up. Use your imagination. Come on, Fred. Story time. No judgies.
Okay. How's it going?
Hey man, how you doing, Josh?
I'm very well, Rob. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You're getting my my ninja hair today. My quarantine ninja hair. You'd be the first to enjoy it.
How's things in California? All good?
All good, yeah. I got back actually about 48 hours ago, so still acclimating to the time change and everything, but I'm happy to be back.
Everyone's had kind of a crazy year, but for you, starting with the premiere at Sundance in January, then kind of everything just went nuts in March. How were things for you from March leading up to the release of Scare Me in October? Was you staying constantly busy?
I was in a pretty privileged position because when I went to Sundance, I was in prep for my second feature film. And so I was only able to attend, I think, one of our 5 screening, which was opening night. So we got in Thursday, I attended a Friday for the midnight screening, and then left Sunday morning before our afternoon, matinee. So I wrapped March 9th, was back in California by the 12th. Or rather, by the 10th, we were in lockdown that Friday.
Wow.
But I was busy. I was able to have sort of a regular schedule, a routine, a 9 to 5 with my editor editing this other film. So I came up out of an editing fog.
Gotcha.
Sort of looking around going, okay, we're in lockdown or we're in this pandemic. And now I, can maybe read a book or two. Mm-hmm. And start to worry. And then that kind of rolled into the release of Scare Me. So it's sort of been an okay experience mentally to that degree. I've had moments where I've just sort of been like, oh God, if only I could, break my day up by going to the movies or getting a drink with a buddy.
It's little things like that, isn't it? It's kind of, I'm a bit of a homebody, but it's just like, I just want to go and see a film.
Yeah, same. I'm the same way.
When did Shudder get involved with Scare Me? Was it through Sundance or was it prior to that?
No, it was prior to Sundance. Totally totally unrelated to them, being interested in acquiring the film. I was interested in just being considered as a director for the Creepshow reboot.
Oh, right, cool.
And I had no experience under my belt other than, my college humor sketches, some commercials and short films and the like. I directed some episodes of television, but, sort of basic cable stuff. And they already had their roster filled out, but my reps just sort of sent a cut of Scare Me on a Whim. And they said, we have to have this. And that was kind of how it all began.
Awesome. Like you say, you're known for your work in kind of comedy. So I was wondering, when did the idea for a movie within the horror genre become a reality for you? Is it something you've always kind of had in the back of your mind because you're a fan of horror films?
I've always been a fan of the genre. I've been saying, I think I am a fan. I'm a horror fan first. I am naturally funny and I'm known for being a comedian, but I've always been a fan of the genre. It's how I grew up. My brother, my sister specifically, was the one to introduce me to horror films. I think Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees were sort of cartoon characters, in a macabre way for little Josh Ruben. So I just sort of, when the time came to, where I kind of realized no one was going to spoon feed me the opportunity to make a movie, and the movie I kind of wanted to make, I knew that a genre film, a horror film, would sort of be the, I guess, least risky, the most fun, and should it pay off, the most rewarding in the end, because the horror community is very forgiving and willing to take chances on new projects and new filmmakers.
So you describe it as kind of a horror anthology campfire movie that doesn't actually leave the campfire. How easy is it to pitch something like that, either to cast people or producers or investors and stuff like that? Because it must be a weird one to pitch.
It's a weird one to pitch, but I think for a movie this size, you have to have a fresh kind of an angle. So my angle was always that it's going to be a performance-based movie, but where we create horror soundscapes out of nothing, out of space. It's funny. A guy I went to acting school with, Kevin Laibson, who comes from the improv world, said, "You made a Spolin movie. You made a theater games movie. You're actually creating objects in space." It was one of my most, I think, beloved memories of acting school, was working in, Spolin games and with Paul Sills and the like, and creating objects out of space. So, I was able to just sort of, that was always in my vocabulary. And I'm a kind of esoteric person, filmmaker and comedian, where people, especially on this small of a scale, just kind of got that was the angle.
There's so many cool elements to this film, which I think is going to make it something that people can go regularly back to, like from the single location with the various stories, but also the gender dynamics, which play a very important role in the story. Was that something that was originally in the early concept, or something that kind of worked its way in with a lot of the things which have been brought to light, particularly within the movie industry in the past few years?
I was certainly influenced by what was going on in the world at the kind of height of the Me Too movement. I was getting sort of frustrated and having, what was happening to a lot of my heroes and people in my industry and everything. Kevin Spacey and Dustin Hoffman and Aziz Ansari and Weinstein, all these people, these respectable people, turning out to be, less than. And I was having a lot of conversations with women and women fans of mine, not just from the college humor world, but, friends and the like. And the conversation became a bit about gender dynamics. And I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to make a preachy Me Too movie. That's not my, in my my bucket list. But to make something in the DNA, something about something more idiosyncratic and specific, competition between genders.
Other than the great story and performances, the sound effects, like you say, and the editing as well, play such an important role. How was it for you and the cast and crew to picture that in your heads while shooting it? Or was it easy for you to explain it to people, what you had in your mind?
It was fairly easy to articulate. We were a small crew, and so on our tech scout, I kind of acted out Fred's first story in some moments, and I sort of explained what we would hear and feel, and that we would need to leave space and that sort of thing. So it wasn't too difficult. Everyone sort of knew once I explained, the first story. And once we did the tech scout, everyone kind of knew what they were in for, and they were in for something different.
How did it feel seeing like the first edits and seeing everything coming together? Was that pretty exciting?
It was really exciting. Patrick Lawrence, the editor, did such an incredible job. Our first cut came in at about 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes. And my first reaction was, well, we can't cut anything out of this. This is great. And he goes, no, you're going to cut at least a half an hour out of this. Having done Werewolves and worked with, a different editor and just a different pace. Now, of course, I look at Scare Me and think, oh man, all the places I could tighten up. That's just the thing about learning and moving through. crew. I mean, Patrick did such an amazing job, and I was blown away.
It's so fast paced in places.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that kind of thing where it's just you're never done. You're never done editing, whether you're writing, whether you're making something. My head's always going to be in the place of what else could I do to make it punchier, faster, and everything else.
Don't be a George Lucas though, and keep
Yeah, right. Every 10 years, I'll add ET, a CGI ET.
Put a rock or put a chair in there or something like that.
I need it.
Speaking of Star Wars, I love the Star Wars fan film which you did. TK630.
Thank you. Damn, yeah, you've done your homework. Yeah, that was my cinematographer on Scare Me, Brendan Banks. He directed and shot that.
It looks great.
And my best friend wrote it. Yeah, Charlie McQuaid.
What kind of response did that get from the Star Wars community?
I remember it being quite fair. I remember it being fair and well regarded. It's a very high quality project for being so low budget. That was actually filmed in my parents' backyard.
What?
On my street, on my childhood road.
Yeah, it's excellent. And once like the music kicks in as well, it just adds to it as well. But it just looks great on an epic scale. Whose was the biker scout costume?
I know Sean Dermond, who actually was my wardrobe designer on Scare Me. He did the costume design and busted it up and dirtied it up and had found it somewhere on the internet, and I think assembled it in different sort of pieces. Like I know we got the blaster from one place and maybe the helmet from another and the bodysuit from another or something like that. He did such a wonderful job.
Yeah.
The magic of the internet.
So going back to Scare Me, were there any other short stories filmed for like the anthology part of the movie, or is it just the ones which we see on camera?
Everything intended to be in there is in there. There was some concepts where, I sort of imagined switching the roles up. Was Fred going to tell the grandpa story and Fanny going to be the one to listen and vice versa? And I sort of wrote to what I knew my strengths were as an actor and didn't want to give Aya this sort of one-woman sketch show, which she did anyway and did successfully. But that was sort of the nature of Fanny's character. She could do what Fred did with less raw energy and more grace. But no, every story written in the script intended to be acted out and executed remained. Time was just cut out of each one. Grandpa was longer. Troll was about exactly as intended. Venus had the most cuts. There's a 12-page, 12-minute version of Venus, and we would show it at test screenings, and people would just be like, "This is way too much, too long." And Patrick and I figured out kind of our best route to trimming it, which was as a drug sequence, fast and furious and odd.
So was the film shot in the Catskills?
Yeah, Woodstock, New York. Yeah, a cabin near Cooper Lake.
Is that near to where you grew up?
Mm-hmm, yeah, about 8 minutes. That was kind of, my writing to my resources. Yeah, right near my folks' house.
So is it somewhere you went on vacation, or was it just literally so close it was somewhere you was there at weekends?
I had never been to the house as a kid or anything and didn't know it even existed. I was, we didn't have a location scout. I scoured Instagram with my cinematographer, Brendan, just for houses that had character, and that one popped up. We took a look at it and threw a price out, and the owner went for it. But it just happened to be about 8 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah. Is that kind of area somewhere you'd spent a lot of time in?
A lot of time. I had grown up for the most part in Potomac, Maryland, but had been coming to the house my folks currently live in as a kid, as a vacation house, because my mother and her family grew up in that house, in this old farmhouse. And I had a lot of creative sort of catharses and light bulbs, go off in my many years, going back to that house when I lived in New York, and took it for granted as a kid, but then to return to that place is it's just bursting with creativity. And to have shot my first thing there, it was fully intended. And actually I got to bring back my second film to the area as well, which was really incredible, really gratifying.
I think I read somewhere that you used to make home movies when you was younger.
Yeah. Fat Man, Guardians of the Defenders of the Galaxy, all kinds of bizarre character sketch videos.
How old was you then?
I started, my folks got me my first camcorder, I think, for 6th grade graduation. So is that about 12 or 13 years old, something like that. And I started making videos with my neighbors, Jillian and James. And we would just write stuff and just essentially meet up every weekend, kind of oddball trio. And then I kind of would just, that evolved into making character profile videos, sort of sketchy profiles where it was just a character being interviewed, which actually, oddly enough, I didn't really put this together, but I ended up doing a version of that on a, larger level many years later.
Was there any kind of particular film that inspired that, or was you just a general movie lover?
A general movie lover for sure. I mean, I was inspired by, anything and everything comic book and superhero film back then, especially Batman, especially, the Incredible Hulk TV series and, X-Men cartoon and cartoons in general, and was just a film lover from the jump. I mean, again, with watching everything genre from Krull to Stephen King's Cat's Eye as a kid.
So you were born in 1983, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, and you mention and reference a lot of brilliant films in Scare Me, Cat's Eye, Creepshow, Labyrinth, Poltergeist, Tales from the Crypt. How did you learn about those films growing up? Because you'd have been very young when they were originally released. Was it all just through VHS or through your sister?
Through VHS, certainly movies like, Cat's Eye and Jaws VHS. Same thing with, talking about, early VHS memories. I mean, going and seeing covers for stuff like Gothic, which I don't think I actually ever saw, or Angel Heart.
Right.
But grabbing like RoboCop off the shelf, Monkey Shines, like the covers really stick with me, but I didn't see a lot of what I was struck by in the store, or wasn't allowed to grab, grab those films. They probably looked a little too jarring, although I somehow got away with watching the first 10 minutes of RoboCop till my mom saw, the guy get his dick blown off and then got to shut it off. But yeah, all VHS always. I mean, that was the thing, right?
Yeah.
Back then, I remember kind of being, furled by, or, brushed by CDs, certainly when they came out, because I loved cassette tapes and DVDs, and thinking like, what the hell is this?
What's the age difference between you and your sister? You say your sister introduced you to a lot of films.
9 years.
Wow, right, okay.
Her and my brother, they're twins, so they're 9 years my senior.
Yeah, that's quite a big difference when you're really young.
Yeah, and I got to see more or less the adult stuff. I mean, nothing too risque, but like, Freddy Krueger had a TV show called Freddy's Nightmares that I saw, definitely, and Monsters. It was a show, called Monsters, and pretty much anything Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger. That was my early intro, I think, with them.
Yeah. Was you a fan of the Twilight Zone movie? I'm surprised that didn't get a mention.
Yeah, Twilight Zone the movie and Tales from the Dark Side the movie absolutely had a major effect on me. There was a time where both of them, I'm pretty sure it must have been both of them, and I probably watched both of them equal amounts. But where Tales from the Dark Side the movie and Twilight Zone the movie, certainly Twilight Zone, were on every day on either HBO or Showtime, and I would just watch it anytime it was on.
I've still not seen the recent Twilight Zone.
The series, Jordan Peele's. Yeah, I want to. I heard it was actually very good.
I want to check that out. And you mentioned Silver Bullet too. That gets a good shout in Scare Me. I'm a big Two Coreys fan and grew up loving their films, and that's a great Corey Haim film.
So good.
Gary Busey is awesome, extra awesome.
He really is, yeah. Uncle.
Are you a fan of any other Stephen King adaptations? It's obviously kind of a Misery vibe in Scare Me.
I love Misery. Misery is probably my favorite. It's one I watch, I think, without fail every year. I also watched the shit out of Sleepwalkers when I was a kid. And Mick Garris, I'm dying to get his attention and just pick his brain. I think everything that he ever made, from Psycho 4 and Critters to Sleepwalkers, I watched as a kid, even, bits and pieces of his television work. But other King stuff. I mean, I think Cat's Eye and Misery and Sleepwalkers, that they stick out the most.
What about Secret Window, the Johnny Depp film?
I saw it once when it came out, and it's funny, the King cast guys who do the podcast about King, they had some trivia question about an actor who was in something, and I just took a swing and said John Turturro. It had to do with a quiz, and quiz show, or like something about a quiz was the clue, and I just took a swing and said John Turturro because I remembered he was in Quiz Show but didn't know he'd ever done anything Stephen King, and it turned out John Turturro's in Secret Window,
right?
Which I only ever saw once.
Yeah,
I would totally watch it again. I don't think that one was terribly good, but I also liked 1408. I didn't hate that one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. It's great. I say Stephen King stuff is kind of hit and miss sometimes. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, but Flanagan seems the one who seems to be the one who sort of found a groove with him, with Gerald's Game, and Dr. Sleep.
Gerald's game was great.
It was really rad. Yeah, intense.
So you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street quite a few times, and you've got Robert Englund as your Twitter profile picture. Which was the first one you saw? Was it Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors?
I did, yeah. The certainly the original, and I remember the original scared the shit out of me. And then I think the next one I saw was Dream Master. I think that was the one with the baby carriage, or was that Child?
Dream Child was number 5, where she gets pregnant.
Dream Warriors or Dream Child was one of the next ones that I had seen for sure. So long as we're still in the 80s, yeah, I recall somehow getting away with getting that VHS and watching that. I mean, the imagery in all of them were just so phenomenal and so visceral, and just have all stayed with me. But I think what it is that he was I got to enjoy him more as a cartoon character. Like when I was a kid, I remember the action figures and play cards and bubble gum. I mean, there was Freddy everything.
It's unreal to think that kind of happened.
Yeah, he was a cartoon character, and I grew up thinking, oh well, this is appropriate for me. I certainly adapted well to it and was certainly allowed to see it. I think my parents recently mentioned that they had recalled getting reprimanded that I did a Freddy Krueger impression to my teacher in either kindergarten or first grade.
Yeah,
and they were just like, you showing your kid this movie? But it was the biggest. I mean, it was like he was like horror the Beatles. He was so popular.
It was great. So since Scare Me is like an original standalone movie within the horror genre, how nervous were you when you put it out into the world, waiting for the reaction? Did the response at Sundance give you some kind of encouragement, or is it totally different when you put it to the public?
I don't know. I mean, there was a moment when I would kind of furiously, refresh Rotten Tomatoes once we got on there. I was more just thrilled that we got into Sundance, that Shudder was interested. That was the validation that meant more to me than anything, that my fiance, that my best friend, my family, and the folks at Shudder loved it. Like, that's what mattered. That my producer Alex, who got the movie off the ground and had to give birth to her kid, so wasn't on set, that she got to see the cut and was like, thank God this thing I helped you, put together is good, because I, was championing it all this way.
Yeah.
Everyone who believed in it, the fact that they did believe in it and that they're fans of it, that's all I need. It could have gotten trashed in the public eye. I'm thrilled for it to be on VOD. I'm thrilled for people all over to be able to see it, regardless of having a Shudder subscription, and get to see the extras,
Yeah. You should do like a limited VHS run at some point.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. I've got a record and a VHS, and I've got all kinds of things up my sleeve.
Yeah. Could you ever see it being done as like a stage play?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. Once the dust settles and, in a little bit, once we know the world is back to normal and here to stay and theater comes roaring back, and it will. My dream is to do a run at, I'm thinking kind of lower tier, but, St. Anne's Warehouse in Brooklyn, or Cherry Lane Theater, somewhere off Broadway, second stage, somewhere wonderful and willing to take a swing. Whether it's Aya who comes back, but I would love to originate Fred again and rope in an actor, a cast that'd be down to just, make it their own.
What does 2021 hold in store for both Scare Me and your new movie, Werewolves Within? Should we get back to some normality? Is there any kind of grey blueprint at the moment? Because everything's just changing all the time.
Everything's changing all the time. There's been some exciting movement regarding distribution and who's interested in it, but I can't say anything. It's not, nothing's real until it's real and it's announced. But I'm thrilled to show the world Werewolves Within. It's very different than Scare Me, and yet has a similar kind of energy. And I think, for fans of Arachnophobia and Knives Out and those sorts of films, even Hot Fuzz, it's got some vibes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really thrilled.
Are you a fan of like Shaun of the Dead?
Oh, yeah. Edgar Wright is great. And I love, sort of unrelated, but Man Stroke Woman was a sketch group with Nick Frost that I just absolutely adored. That whole contingent of actors is just so brilliant.
Werewolves Within was, like you said earlier, it was shot again on the East Coast. How is it for you, like now being located out in California, to return to the places you grew up? Do you like that connection going back?
Yeah, I really, really do. I took the kind of, this place for granted as a kid. And then as I'd been coming back up, taking sort of little breaks from living in the city in my, 15 plus years in the city, I would always have this sort of creative breakthrough if I was writing writing something, working on something, I would always get more done. My ideas would be more vibrant, more colorful, more fun up there when I would write, or just kind of, I also loved growing up there. And I'm a family person.
Yeah.
And so the combination of, of all of the aforementioned, plus being able to bring commerce to the area and take advantage of their wonderful tax incentives for filmmakers, and to encourage film to come to the Hudson Valley, and, befriending Laurent Rayteau of the Film Commission has been really wonderful. And just kind of knowing that whole crew up there.
Yeah.
They're all just wonderful. I'm thrilled. And I would love to do the good majority of my work up there. I think the dream would be to do a television series up there and just get everyone aboard for a year's worth of work. There's just an incredible, military of folks, and they come from either the city or truly locally from the more, country tri-county area, or, Dutchess Ulster County, as opposed to, New York City proper. There's just incredible wealth of talent, and they all know the area well. They're, it adds quite a lot to the experience for me.
There's not any old movie theaters which you used to visit where you could show Scare Me once cinemas open again, is there?
Yeah, we could do something interesting actually at the Bearsville Theater, which is typically a stage theater in Woodstock. Same with the Woodstock Playhouse. There's a great theater in Saugerties. It's actually for sale. I fantasized about buying it, but it's not my hometown proper. It's the town next over. But I think it's the Orpheum 3, where I saw everything from God, What Dreams May Come to Starship Troopers and Something About Mary, when I was a kid. Halloween 5? No, Halloween H2O. I saw.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the first horror film you got to see in the cinema, do you think?
Oh, no. The first horror film I saw in the cinema, God, if I had to take a wild guess, man, I know I've seen them far earlier than what I'm about to say, because I remember seeing The Ring in the cinema, but I know I've seen...
Would it be the Scream films?
Oh, no, my gosh. You know what I saw in the theater? It was either the final Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell. I definitely saw in the theater with my sister, and I'll never forget it, actually. She said, hey, do you want to go see Jason Goes to Hell? And we were like home alone, just her and I, and she had the car. And I just thought that was the most exciting thing.
The one where Freddy grabs the mask.
Freddy grabs the mask and drags it down. Yeah. That one I definitely remember. God, such a fond memory. And I think I saw Child's Play 3. Yeah. I definitely remember the cardboard cutouts at the theater, my local theater in Maryland. God, good times. Good times. Thanks for jogging the memory.
Thank you ever so much, man. I appreciate you taking the time and having a chat.
Wonderful, man. Rob, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was great. Good jog that memory lane. Thanks to you. Stay in touch. Well, let's talk werewolves when it's out. I'll come back.
That'd be awesome. All righty, Josh. You take care, mate.
All right. You too.
Many, many thanks to Josh Ruben for taking the time to talk to me here on the Straight to Video podcast. Please, however you can, go and watch Scare Me either on the Shudder streaming service or on video on demand. And if you're interested, I'll share a link to the Star Wars fan film we spoke about called TK630. Have a look on the Straight to Video Facebook page and Twitter, where I'll post that too. If you're a fan of the Star Wars saga, I think you'll appreciate this one. Thanks to you guys for listening to this episode and for all your continued support. I'm forever blown away. So until next time, take care of yourselves and speak to you real soon.